Hey everybody, it's Emily at Arg Schooling, and welcome to yet another book haul. I bought a lot of things in August, and let's just talk about it, shall we? So I've divided this up into like 3 categories, and we'll just work through them. The first category I'm going to go through is middle grade. So first up, I have The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet by Jake Maya Arlo. And actually it was Sarah who told me about this book, and I pre-ordered it early on. I don't even know when I pre-ordered it, but this was an early August release. I think this came out on the 1st. And the reason I was intrigued by this title is because it is a story about a young girl with Crohn's disease and like her finding out about her diagnosis and how that's going to affect her life going forward. And while I don't have Crohn's, I do have ulcerative colitis, and I'm well acquainted with having digestive issues for my entire life. So I would love to read a story about that because I don't know that I have before. So I'm looking forward to picking this up. I have Don't Want to Be Your Monster by Deke Moulton. And again, I'm pretty sure it was Sarah who told me. Sarah's always the best with recommendations. But she told me I should read this because this is a Jewish vampire story. And the reason that is such a cool thing is that a lot of the vampire mythology is rooted in anti-Semitism. And so this is a story where a Jew decided to flip that a little bit. And so we're following, I think, 2 vampires who are being hunted by a vampire hunter. And again, this is middle grade, so I'm expecting a kind of cute story, but also with some creepy vibes and vampires. I have Where the Lockwood Grows. This is by Olivia A. Cole, and this is an environmental sci-fi story. So yeah, this is a story about a future in which scientists and the government work together to create wood that cannot burn. And they've engineered this plant so that the wood, it can't burn, but it grows really fast, so they have to cut it back constantly, and their world gets overgrown if they don't. And our main character learns some kind of shocking secret about what's happening. So I think it has an element of dystopia to it. I bought this for my daughter to read, but I also want to read it because it sounds really intriguing. So I'm very curious to see what I think of this. I have a nonfiction. I bought the newest History Smashers. This is Christopher Columbus and the Taino People by Kate Messner. I just love this series. I think it's really well done. They do a really great job of diversifying history, of looking at events through different perspectives and lenses. We've really enjoyed these books so far. So even though my daughter's kind of aging out of it, I still want to have them. I still plan on buying them. I don't know, maybe I'll do some kind of something with this for Build Your Library, but I am looking forward to reading it. And then the last middle grade title I have here is The Trouble with Good Ideas by Amanda Panich. And I bought this because it's a story about a golem. This is about a girl, a Jewish girl, whose great-grandfather is becoming ill and he needs to be moved into an assisted living facility, but it's going to upend Leah's life, and she's very resistant to change. And so she learns about how her great-grandfather created a golem to protect his family during the Holocaust and protect them from the Nazis. And so she learns how to do it and creates a golem to protect her great-grandfather from having to leave. But what do you do when the golem turns on the creator? So this sounds like it's gonna be really cute, but also really kind of creepy and fun. I don't know, I love golem stories. It's one of my favorite Jewish mythology tropes to read about. If you tell me there's a golem in the story, I will automatically need to read it, and I'll probably love it. So I'm hoping that this is good. Moving on to the next category. These are just books that I bought because I wanted them. They don't have a category per se. These are just things that I wanted. So first up in that stack is The Wishing Game, and this is by Meg Schaefer. I've just been hearing people rave about this, and it sounds like a thing that I'm going to love. This is a book about bookish things, book love. It's about, I think, a contest, an author, a quirky author, so it kind of reminds me, just reading it, the synopsis, it sounds like a middle grade story, except it's written for adults. So like already I'm invested. That's exactly the kind of thing I love. It's about a love of reading. It's about a mystery about this author, a contest. So like, I don't know the details and I don't really want to. Like, you guys know that I don't really read the full synopsis most of the time because I don't want to know too much going in, but I think this is a book I'm going to love. I have the newest in the Buffy prequel series. I'm excited for this one. This is The Bewitching Hour by Ashley Poston, and it's a Tara McClay story. I've always enjoyed Tara's character, but I always thought like they should have gone a little deeper into her lore because we touch on it just a little bit in the series, but there's so much there like that I want to know more about. So I'm excited that we have a Tara story, a Tara backstory to read about. I did not read the synopsis for this because I don't want to know anything going in. I just want to just jump in blind, but I'm hopeful that I will love this. If you are a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I recommend checking this series out. So far, there's only 2 books. There is a Spike prequel, Bloody Fool for Love, and now we have a Tara prequel. I can't wait to see what other characters we're gonna get prequels for. Like, I desperately want a Faith backstory. But I also really, really want a Giles backstory. So can we please, like, I need a Ripper story and I need a Faith backstory. Like, I want to read about Faith being called as a Slayer and what happened to her before she came to Sunnydale. Because, again, touched on, never fully went into it in the show. So I would love that. So those are my wishes. I purchased What Souls Are Made Of by Tasha Suri. This is one of those classics remixed books. I've enjoyed the ones that I've read. I really want to read more of them. So when I saw this was on sale, I bought it. This one is a Wuthering Heights retelling. And I believe we're following characters who are from India. So I'm excited. I love Wuthering Heights. I'm one of those people that did enjoy that book. I feel like it's one that you either loved it or you hated it. I enjoyed the dark gothicness of the story and like a kind of bizarre twisted love story. I liked that. So I'm hoping that I will also enjoy this. I have Homestead by Melinda Moustakis. This, again, look at it, that like the cover, the ambiance of that. I love this. This is a story set in the 1950s, and we're following I think it's a married couple who are building a homestead in Alaska. So that is all I really need to know. It's a historical setting because it's in the 1950s. It's Alaska, which is a place that I find just so intriguing. And this cover's beautiful. It's also homesteading, which is something that I will never actually do. Like, I don't see myself ever being a homesteader, but I love the concept of it and I love reading about it. So I feel like this has a lot of like my boxes checked. So I'm hoping that it's good. I heard about this one from Books and Lala, Kayla's channel. She mentioned this book, Do You Dream of Terara 2 by Temi O. And to be honest, I bought this to read with Regina for the school year, and then I pulled it out because we had too many books and I know the least about this one, so I thought I should read it first. This is a sort of science fiction story, even though I think it's mostly literary, but we're following characters who are going to be traveling through space to a new planet where they will be inhabiting this new planet. So like, I think most of the story is about the preparation and like getting there rather than like actually being on the planet, if that makes sense, which I have enjoyed that in the past in other books. So I'm hoping this is done well. So yeah, scientists discovered this Earth-like planet. They're sending people to go live there. I think we're following mostly teens. I'm not sure, but I think this might be YA, but I'm not positive on that, so don't hold me to it. It sounds really interesting, and I feel like it could potentially be something that would work as a read aloud, but I need to read it first. And then I got can't even see that. It's too bright. I have the Barnes & Noble exclusive of The Great Gatsby and Other Stories written by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I just couldn't pass it up. It's a gorgeous book. It's going to look nice on my shelves, but I also do want to read more of F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing because I've always loved The Great Gatsby and have claimed it for years as one of my favorite classics, but I've never read anything else that he's written, so I'm hoping to make that happen. And then I have Inanna. This is by Emily H. Wilson, and I have such high hopes for this. This is another mythology retelling, but now we're going on to Mesopotamian mythology, which is, I feel, an unexplored mythology. I feel like there's so much out there on Greek mythology. There's a ton, but there's so many other mythologies. We have a lot of Asian mythology retellings as well, so I'm excited, so excited to see a Mesopotamian mythology. This is a Gilgamesh retelling, as far as I understand it, but we're looking at it from the perspective of Inanna, and I don't know too much else about this. Just somebody recommended this to me, and I immediately purchased it because I have to have it. It's the first book in a potential trilogy. And so I'm excited. I'm hoping to get to this really soon because I need it to be amazing. Okay, everything else I have here is horror. And so I'm going to start with the reason I bought so much horror this month. And that is Sadie Hartman's book, 101 Horror Books to Read Before You're Murdered. I've already read this and I loved it. I got really excited and I bought a lot of things. Not all of these were purchased because of this book, but a lot of them were. But if you are somebody like me who enjoys horror but doesn't really know what to pick up, maybe like me, you grew up on Stephen King and John Saul and Christopher Pike, but you've never really explored further. You've not really ventured out. I wanted to know what to read. I signed up for Nightworms specifically so that someone else could pick books for me because I didn't know what to pick up. So when I knew she was writing this book, I got so excited. I felt like finally someone was going to sit me down and show me the ropes and tell me what I should be reading. And that is exactly what this is. Sadie makes every book sound amazing. She writes about them so well, and it's got me like planning so many reading adventures this coming year, the rest of this year. Like, I am so excited to read all of the things. And that also came in the Nightworms for the August box, which also came with this one, The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter and Andrew F. Sullivan. I still don't really know a lot about this. I've heard there's a lot of trigger warning stuff, like be aware going in. There's a lot. It's disturbing. I know this has to do with a family moving into a new house and getting involved in some like home improvement type stuff, but like I don't know exactly what it is that causes the horror. I don't think it's a haunted house. I think this is more along the lines of like possibly getting like possessed. I honestly don't really know anything about this. The synopsis was a little bit confusing, to be honest. So like that didn't really help me to figure out what this is. So I've heard interesting things. Okay, I bought Sherry Dimeline's newest book, Venco. This is a witch story with an indigenous twist. So I don't, again, know too much about this, besides that it's witches, it's indigenous. Sherry Dimeline is an author that I keep saying I'm going to read, and now I own at least 3, possibly 4 of their books. I'm not sure. I know at least 3 of their books, and I haven't read them. So definitely want to read this though, because I love a good witch story. I have The God of Endings. This is by Jacqueline Holland, and I got excited about this because this is a vampire story, but the way it was described sounds a lot like Addie LaRue, where you're following this one character through long swaths of time, and like how they handle this curse that they have, which isn't a curse, but it is a curse, you know? So like immortality, is that really a curse? It depends on how you look at it, I guess. But I love Daddy LaRue. I love that kind of story where we're following one person through a long period of time. So I feel like this has a lot of potential. Last month I was on a Stephen King kick. So when I got the other Barnes & Noble edition, it was a buy one get one half off, so I bought a brand new copy of The Stand. Isn't she pretty? Like, it's gonna look so nice on my shelves. So, yeah, The Stand is one of my favorite Stephen King novels. I really need to reread it at some point, though, to reassess that. But it still stands in my mind as being like one of his best works. So I will still claim it as my favorite. So now I own, I think, 3 different copies of this. 3 different editions. I also read Gwendy's Button Box, which I loved. It's a novella. It's so good. And I loved it so much. I looked it up and found out it was a trilogy. Now, I think Stephen King only co-authored the first book. The other 2 books that I have here are written just by Richard Chizmar. So I believe this one is the second book in the series, and we have Gwendy's Magic Feather by Richard Chizmar, and then the third book is Gwendy's Final Task. So these are both much bigger than the original, which is a novella, and I think I read it in like just over an hour. I sat down and could not stop. So now I have both of these so I can finish them. I don't know if I'm going to like them as much because these aren't written with Stephen King. I've never read anything just by Richard Chizmar. But the first book was so good. So like I really wanted to read the rest of it. Then I bought It Came From the Closet. This is Queer Reflections on Horror, edited by Joe Valise. This just sounds like something I'm going to love. I love horror movies. I've watched far more horror movies than I've read horror books. So I would never consider myself a horror movie buff. I've seen a lot, but I definitely haven't seen everything. But I love horror movies. I love talking about them. And what this is several queer authors have written essays about their favorite horror movies and how they feel that the movie helped them work through their queerness or helped them, inspired them in some way. Yeah, the back says 25 contemporary queer and trans writers reflect on the horror films that shaped them and shook them from Hitchcock to Halloween to Hereditary. So they're talking about horror movies. Like, I need that. I love that. So I'm hoping that this is as good as I've hyped it up in my head. These next 5 books are books that I bought because they were recommended by Sadie Hartman in 101 Horror Novels to Read Before You're Murdered. I bought Goddess of Filth by V. Castro. To be fair, this has been on my wish list for a while. Every time somebody mentions this book, I'm like, ooh, I should read that. And I didn't own it. So it's short. Now I have it. I'm hoping to like fly through it. This is a possession story. And it sounds really similar in story to Grady Hendrix's My Best Friend's Exorcism, but I think it goes a lot darker. Like, where My Best Friend's Exorcism is what I would consider horror comedy, this is just straight horror. This is going to be a lot more scary. But like, it's still about a best friend situation where like one of them becomes possessed and the other one is trying to find a way to save her. So similar but different. So I've not read anything by V. Castro yet. I now own 2 of their books and I really need to read something. So I'm hoping to get to that soon. I have Hearts Strange and Dreadful. This is by Tim McGregor. And I bought this one because it's historical horror, which is a thing that I've only really discovered in the last few years, but I still haven't read that much. This is set in the 1800s. It's a creature horror novel. Yeah, it's set in New England in the 1820s. There's a plague. There's some kind of monster happening. I don't know too much about it besides that Sadie says it's great and I want to read it. I finally bought something that I have been eyeing for ages. I just needed the nudge, I think, and that is Shiver. This is by Junji Ito, and it's a collection of short stories. I have been like wanting to read something by Junji Ito for ages now. Like maybe the last 2 years he's been on my radar as an author I need to read. And I just didn't know where to start, didn't know what to pick up. And every time I looked at it, I got like, I didn't know what to do. So I just kept not getting anything. So when Sadie recommended this particular book, I went, okay, thank you. Now I know where to start. So this is Japanese manga. So it's like black and white. It's backwards. Like if you've never read a manga, it takes some getting used to. I've only read manga a couple of times. It's a little bit challenging to get into it first because it's backwards and you gotta like reacquaint yourself with how to read the panels. But once you get it, once it clicks, it's fine. So I'm excited for this. I've heard nothing but good things about his horror manga and I'm gonna get to read it. These last two are the most out of my comfort zone. I don't do thrillers. I don't do crime novels. I don't really do a lot of mysteries. Those are just things that don't really tend to either work for me or things that I just don't end up enjoying as much as I think I would. But the way she's described these two books made me want to read them. So first up is Number One Fan by Meg Ellison. And this is similar to Misery in that it is somebody kidnapping and holding hostage their favorite author, but like set in more modern day, and it has a lot to say about the way we treat authors and celebrities on the internet and that sort of thing. We get into a lot of like Twitter discourse and stuff in this book, I think, and I find that really interesting and intriguing. So yeah, it's a thriller, it's a crime drama. I don't generally like that, but the themes and the premise of this sound more in line with what I would like. This one's the one that I'm the least sure of, but again, like the way Sadie describes it, I'm like, okay, maybe. And that is Good Neighbors by Sarah Langen. And this one is about like a suburban neighborhood where something bad has happened, and like apparently it gets crazier and crazier the more the story goes. And I was just so intrigued by the way she wrote about this story that I'm like, okay, fine, I'm gonna read it. You've convinced me. So I guess I'm gonna read a thriller. 2 crime thrillers. Like, who am I? I don't know. I hope that they're good. Those are all the books that I bought in August. Oh God, I can't do it, 25 books in the month of I can't do it. I bought 25 books in the month of August. Oh, I gotta set them down. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read anything that I've talked about today. If you think I should prioritize anything, let me know what cool new books you bought in the month of August, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.